Welcome into Citizen Sports Talk. Kaden Reinhard here with Jacob Smith. Week removed off from our bye week last week. After basketball ended, now we're into spring sports, but not really sure if the Southwest Virginia weather is going to coincide with the spring sports starting. It seems like it doesn't know exactly what it wants to do. Monday and Tuesday had some games kind of get rained out for us, so the week.
Not just rained out, Caden, snowed out, or whatever, wintry mix. However,
Precipitation out, we can say.
that's a nice way to put it. Let's roll with that. So a lot of opening days for baseball, softball got postponed a little bit. But starting off the action on Wednesday, Caden, the Lady Buff softball team traveled to Christiansburg to begin their 2026 campaign. And a convincing 15-7 victory, 9 runs scored in the 6th inning. And it was a cold and windy evening in Christiansburg, and the Lady Buffs were hot in the win, the dominant win to start the season 1-0. And they only had the one game this week, but I'm sure you'll talk about it at the end of the episode. But the Lady Buffs have 3 games to look forward to next week.
They do, and just to touch on that real quick, starting off the season with that many runs, that offensive prowess, that can't be anything but a good sign because usually it takes a couple games to get into the swing, seeing other pitchers besides just live game action with your own pitchers. So just to be able to make an offensive statement like that so early on, first game, I think that's really incredible.
Absolutely, and with the small sample size, we don't know what this entails. Maybe it's just a one really good matchup that favored the Lady Buffs, and maybe it's shows the Lady Buffs are that quality of a team, but we'll definitely need a little bit bigger of a sample size to really determine anything for the season overall, correct?
Definitely, but you can't start off a good season without a great opening, so no better way.
Absolutely, and talk about a great opening as well on Wednesday. The boys soccer team traveled to Eastmont and came away with a 2-1 victory, or I should say soccer match. 2-1 victory for the Buffaloes there. They also start their campaign 1-0.
Good start for them, traveling onto the road. That can always be tough to start your season. Away environment. Eastmont, not a team that Floyd particularly sees in a lot of sports, so definitely a different matchup kind of mentally there, but good job for the Buffaloes coming out with the victory.
And you talking about both games for Floyd County with softball and the boys soccer having to travel. Buffaloes baseball didn't have to do that on Thursday. They got the privilege to host Bassett at home. Coach Miller's first game as the head coach for the Buffaloes baseball program. And it was a high-scoring affair, which we have another one on doc that you'll go over in a little bit. But 3 home runs in that game. And funny enough, the second pitch of the game, Micah Ryan for Bassett scores the home run, and that was just a sign of things to come. Dakin Slaughter had a 2-run homer in the bottom of the 3rd, and then Tyler Bird had a 2-run homer for the Bengals late. And Bassett, again, was able to come away with the win 9-6 on Thursday night.
And yeah, here at Floyd, it's not new. We've seen it last year, the new fence there. But it just makes the baseball games so much more exciting. 3 home runs tonight. I don't think a single, or 3 home runs Thursday night, I don't think a single one of those would have left at the old dimensions. So that just makes baseball games more exciting. I mean, anytime a ball goes over the fence, you can't beat it.
Absolutely. I think looking back to last year as well, because that was a question that I had, last year was like, how will the game change in Floyd with the way the fence is now? And a couple of home runs actually would have passed the original fence, or almost did. Dakin's actually was close to going over the original fence, and it would have hit the fence if nothing else. But like you said, it's an exciting, what if the fence was at its previous dimensions. But like you said, a high-scoring affair. Bassett definitely a good team from what I saw on Thursday night. And I don't think there's too much to be ashamed of. The Buffaloes had some errors, but um, things that they can clean up throughout the season.
Definitely, and just the Bengals, they're aggressive at the plate, like you mentioned. I mean, the second pitch of the game was taken yard, so just navigating that all night for the Buffalo's pitchers was definitely a challenge, I think.
Absolutely. Mason Cockrum starting on the mound for the Buffaloes as well, seeing his first baseball action. Didn't play last year, so in over a year, getting to see the field for the first time. So definitely a lot of factors going into that game last night, or Thursday night, I should say, and just think a lot of optimism despite coming away without a or coming away with a loss. I think there's still a lot of optimism there despite the result.
Definitely, I mean, also first game with the new head coach, so you're always just trying to figure out the nuances, the little stuff that goes into the game. So, I mean, the 5 runs that the Buffaloes put up was already impressive enough, I think.
Absolutely. Um, Talking about the other high scoring affair, transitioning to Friday's action to wrap up this week's episode in terms of what to recap. Caden, what happened in Dublin today?
So Dublin, that was the season opener for both the Cougars and the Cavaliers softball team, and they put up 26 runs combined. The Cougars came away with a 17-9 victory. It was kind of a all over the place for them. 6 defensive errors, but that offense is really what lifted them up. 5 home runs for them today. Victoria Hale had 2, Emma Nestor had 2, and then Sophia Hall, she had 1. So just, I mean, even the Cavaliers, they were able to put up 9 runs themselves. So just, I mean, you look at it like that, you still come away with 9 offensive runs. You look at the positives, you just kind of one game at a time, you go into the next game. But the Cougars, that offense was pungent.
Absolutely. Looking at the events between the Cougars and the Cavaliers in Hillsville tonight, the boys soccer team lost to the Cougars 2-0. The season opener for the boys soccer team as well. And the season opener for Carroll County Baseball also taking on Pulaski County. A lower scoring affair. It was scoreless through 3 innings of play, and Pulaski County early in the game had scoring opportunities, weren't able to capitalize, but Logan Wright and Boone Blevins driven in by the top of the lineup for Pulaski to get their first 2 runs on the board, and then Connor Furrow with a big double driven in by the bottom of the lineup as well for Ty Stacy, 9th in the lineup, and then a 2-run homer, the cherry on top, the icing on the cake, however you want to describe it. The Cade Sauter 2-run homer in the top of the 7th was kind of the nail in the coffin in order to give Pulaski County the 5-0 victory in Hillsville to start the season.
Yeah, it seemed like kind of all this week with all of our games, the home runs were very, they were out there, and especially, a late one like that to lift your team up, that only brings experience back for a team that, we mentioned it before, they're missing a lot of players from last year. They didn't return a whole lot, so just building that chemistry up, and no better way than building up your teammates and to see him hit a home run over.
Absolutely, and again, we're talking middle of March for the build up to the end of the school year, middle of May, possibly early June, if you were to get far enough, in the tournament for regions and states as well. So definitely a lot to look forward to, and you might as well be that transition over to what we have in store for next week, Caden.
A very busy week is what we have in store. We'll start with the Cavaliers on Monday. JV girls soccer will be taking a long trip down 81 to Abingdon, taking on the Falcons, while their JV softball will stay here in Carroll, taking on Tazewell in a doubleheader. Then on the following day, on Tuesday, the Falcons get to return that favor. They head up to Carroll for a boys junior varsity and varsity soccer match, as well as baseball. Junior varsity and varsity will both be taken on Northside. Varsity will host Northside in Carroll, while junior varsity will travel to Roanoke to take on Northside. Then on Wednesday, Girls varsity tennis will be taking on Pulaski. Outdoor boys track will be traveling to Patrick. And then softball junior varsity will be hosting Fort Chiswell, while the softball varsity team heads to Fort Chiswell to take on the Pioneers there. Then ending the week for Carroll, no game action on Friday, so Thursday we'll end it. It is girls JV and varsity soccer. They'll travel to Galax, while it's actually a quad, so the boys will host Galax that day with their soccer team. So that ends out the week for the Cavaliers. And then on to the Buffaloes, getting their day started on a easy Monday. Boys middle school soccer will host Christiansburg, while middle school baseball and softball will travel to Christiansburg for their games there. Then on Tuesday, varsity baseball will host Pulaski, while JV baseball will travel to Pulaski. Then the girls varsity tennis travels to Christiansburg, following that suit from the middle school teams earlier in the week, while softball varsity heads up 460 to Narrows, taking on the Green Wave there, and then ending out Tuesday action. Girls soccer will host Galax here at Floyd. Then on Wednesday, middle school baseball and softball, they'll travel to Shawsville down in Christiansburg to take on their middle school teams, while the middle school boys soccer team gets to host Shawsville and Floyd. Then on Thursday, a very busy day for the Buffaloes, 9 different game actions. So I'll do this one a little bit differently. In Floyd, the 5 matches that will be happening is tennis girls varsity. They'll be hosting Patrick, as well as baseball and softball varsity. They'll host Patrick here in Floyd. But middle school soccer boys, they'll host Pulaski, while the girls host Patrick. So just all around kind of Patrick matchup for the Buffaloes, besides the boys soccer. Middle school will take on Pulaski. Then for the Buffaloes traveling, everybody travels to Patrick, so I don't know how kind of combine rides for them, make it easier, but it'll be varsity boys tennis heading to Patrick alongside the junior varsity boys soccer team and baseball team. And then rounding out that week of action, the varsity soccer boys takes a trip down to Patrick as well.
Definitely interesting, that thought. Maybe there's just a lot of buses that will be taken down the Woolwine Mountain on Thursday for the Buffaloes, but again, didn't get to say it last week with our bye week, as you like to call it. You had the trip to Charlotte. I had the nice, comfort of my couch watching the ACC tournament instead of going to Charlotte like you had the pleasure to do so. But plenty of action. We'll get to recap next week. And thank you for tuning in to Citizen Sports Talk this week. Jacob Smith, Kaden Reinhard, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week.